All right, so this is our second meeting for the Youth Excel Research to Change Technical Interest Group. Super happy to have everyone here. Again, sorry for the delays today. We had some tech issues, but I'm happy to say that we resolved them. I am Brian Bataya. I see some familiar names in here, but also some new names, which is exciting. And I'm joined by my teammate here, Sally. Sally, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. So my name is Sadi Sharat, and I'm the Communications Officer for the Youth Excel program at IREX. And I'm here joining Brian to kind of just facilitate and help you guys with today's session. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able also to lead some of these sessions with Brian as well. So welcome and looking forward for this session.
Thanks, Sally. I think we can advance the slides. So for today, we're going to start with an icebreaker, and then just do a brief overview on Youth Excel and implementation research, youth inclusive implementation research. Talk about youth engagement and youth identities, and then have a discussion forum. And we're going to brainstorm some ideas as a group because we really want to make sure that this is a space where everyone's presenting, right? And we're all sharing ideas. So we have this idea for having features. And we'll have a proposal form to share at the end of the call. Awesome. Thank you, Sally.
All right, so we're gonna start the session with a quick icebreaker. So I'm gonna ask you all to kindly introduce yourselves in the chat and answer this question. How would you define the word inclusion? And feel free to either unmute and share your answers out loud or type in the chat. So I see one answer already in the chat, Michael from Njema. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but from Njema Disability Organization. Thank you for joining, Michael. And can you share with us how you would define the word inclusion? Smith is also here. Hello, Smith. Thank you for this lovely introduction. And yes, please feel free to share your socials in the chat so you can guys connect if you want separately outside of Youth Excel. Sarah, breaking down barriers so that everyone can participate fully. Thank you for sharing that. Antoinette, equal participation of men, women, and youth groups. Thank you, definitely. Chelsea. Chelsea is from Making Sense International. She's joining for Ohio. Thank you for joining, Chelsea. And Chelsea says there are also elements of making sure people, regardless of of how they identify, feel like they belong. Jane, thank you for joining. Nestle, the ability to participate and to be heard in decision making. I agree. Smith describes inclusion as intergenerational collaboration among all social demographies of a community. Thank you. Michael, inclusion is giving equal opportunities regardless of the background. I agree. Sharon from our Global Youth Advisory Council. Hi, Sharon. She says inclusion means involvement of everyone. Thank you. Making sure the space where you include people is also safe. This is definitely an important aspect of inclusion. Thank you, Chelsea. And guys, feel free to unmute if you want. If you'd like to answer out loud, please feel free to do so.
For the sake of time, we can keep proceeding, but I really do encourage everyone, take a moment to scroll through the chat and see how we're all thinking about inclusion. I think it's really inspiring to think or to see how we're all thinking about it and approaching it from so many different places and so many different contexts. So it's really, really exciting. And I want to be transparent too. And the reason why we chose this topic today is because during our first launch call, we just saw so much passion around the topic of social inclusion when it came to youth-led research. And we really wanted to dig into that a bit more. So thank you for bringing this topic to our attention. And we're really hoping we can start this discussion today and continue to have discussions like these throughout this technical interest group. All right. So just a brief overview of Youth Excel. I know that we might have some new people in the room. Our work is based off of 4 different commitments. Next slide, Sally. So the commitments are that we want to generate research and evidence for youth programming. We want to strengthen capacity and exchange capacity with youth-led and youth-serving organizations to use research to strengthen their own programming and do advocacy work. We want to tackle these youth and adult power differentials and prioritize inclusion, the topic of our meeting today. And we want to channel resources to local youth-led and youth-serving organizations to ensure that they have the resources to do all this. So what do we mean when we say youth-inclusive research? 1, it recognizes data as a resource for young implementers to use to strengthen their programs. It commits to making research processes accessible and fun and enticing. And it champions the involvement and leadership of young implementers in all research processes. We won't go too deep into the definition today, but I wanted to share a link with you all in the chat where you can learn more about how we're thinking about youth-inclusive implementation research. Oh, the link seems to not be working.
I can share the link, but I'm gonna have to stop sharing for a second my screen. Is that okay?
1 second. I should be able to sort this out.
Okay.
All right, here is a fact sheet here in the chat. So if you are curious to learn more about how we're thinking about youth-inclusive implementation research, feel free to read that after the call. So what might implementation research look like for an implementer? Discussing implementation priorities, establishing learning goals, developing light touch data collection to meet those goals, and sharing those findings with others, and establishing new learning goals. So it is this continuous journey that we, as those who want to facilitate and support youth-inclusive implementation research, can support young implementers along the way of. Next slide. So again, we're going to be talking about social inclusion, and one of the key aspects of inclusion is thinking about identity and engagement. So one of the core concepts that we want to put at the forefront today is this concept of intersectionality. And the reason why we say this is because often when we talk about youth, we might think of them as one group, when in reality, there are so many different groups of youth within this identity group. So intersectionality is this concept that one individual can have many different parts of their identity that interact in different ways and can intensify or reduce factors of inclusion and exclusion that they might experience. So we wanted to keep this in the forefront of our mind because when we are engaging youth, there are many different forms of engagement and different types of youth that we might be including more unintentionally or excluding unintentionally. So we wanted to have a discussion forum with you all today about this. So I'm going to go ahead and share a link here in the Padlet. For some reason, my links are not working today. Just one moment.
Yes, I understand your lesson.
Okay, you're able to access the link? Here's the link.
This case from you engagement and justify.
What's that, Abdul?
My name is Abdulakim Faraman. I'm from Afghanistan.
Okay, I think I heard you. It's really nice to meet you, Abdul. Are you able to see the link in the chat? You just placed the link in the chat.
Yes, I would like and happy to participate in a youth exchange program in Afghanistan.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we're really happy to have you here today, Abdul.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So if everyone could go ahead and access the link here that I have here in the chat. And if you could just put in the chat, is the link working for you? Everybody? All right. So in this link, there's a Padlet document where we all can participate and contribute ideas. So there's 3 different questions that we wanted you to think about. The first question is, what barriers might exist for youth to participate in youth engagement initiatives? Question 2 is, which youth might face the greatest barriers to engaging with youth programs, and why might that be? And then question 3 is, what are the consequences of missing engagement with youth who face the greatest barriers? I'll go ahead and share my screen really quick just so you can see the Padlet and get a sense of how it might work. So can you all see this okay? What we're asking is for you to take a moment to look at these questions, and yes, do exactly what this person did. So go to the comment section here, add a comment that answers this question from your perspective. We'll go ahead and give some time for people to participate. A lot of really thoughtful answers coming in here. Thank you so much. We'll definitely give you some more time to keep working on this. So I'm sure there are a lot of thoughts in this group. Thank you for sharing that, Mike, here in the chat. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and actually copy this and put it into the Padlet so that it can be seen with everyone else's answers too. I also want to invite people not to just provide your own answers, but take a moment to read some answers from others who contributed and think about that a bit. Some really thoughtful answers here. Thanks again, Mike, for sharing your answer here in the chat. I'll go ahead and move this over to the Padlet too, just so that it's in a central location for everyone. And if others are having issues posting in the Padlet, that's completely fine. If you post your answers here, I'm happy to move them over. Now that we've had some time to participate in the Padlet and read each other's answers, I'd love to hear some thoughts from the group. What are some of your reactions when reading the answers of your fellow attendees? What's standing out to you? I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen too.
Brian, I think this is Chelsea. I think one thing that comes to mind related to our topics of today is, of course, the intersection and overlap between these different factors. So I know that some of us have listed a number of different considerations, but also keeping in mind when youth have not just one of these characteristics, but multiple or face multiple of these barriers. Really thinking about that further compounds some of the challenges that we face in our programming.
Thank you for sharing that, Chelsea. And it's also good to see you again. It's been a while. And I think that really speaks to that concept that we talked about earlier of intersectionality. So I wanted to thank you for bringing that up. And I think there's also a key piece here that I saw. It was about it really depends on the local context when we think about which youth face the greatest barriers. I think that really speaks to how it can change from place to place too. What are others thinking as they read the answers here in the Padlet? I'd love to hear some thoughts. You can feel free to come off mute or share your answers here in the chat. All right, so for the sake of time, feel free to just read it, reflect on it, and think about it a bit more. I'll go ahead and paste the Padlet here again in the chat, in case you want to refer to it after the meeting. There's some really, really brilliant thoughts here, and they only get better and better when they're all together. So feel free to look to that as a resource. So I wanted to have a little flashback to our last meeting. And during our last meeting, we talked about what were some of the barriers to youth leadership in research. And we did a similar Padlet. So I wanted to think back to this, and here were some of the topics that came out of this. So one was a lack of connectedness of youth to resources and persons who could support their leadership in research. Challenges with capacity and experience with research. Challenges surrounding accessibility of different methods of research and these traditional methods. Because again, we're trying to think through how can we make these methods accessible. Thinking through financial and legal barriers to youth leading research, considering those. And then finally, another one that came up was communication and language barriers when it comes to youth leadership and research. So with all of this in mind, we recently had a summit in Ghana focused on youth engagement. And during the summit, we had someone who is a youth inclusive implementation research mentor give a talk about some of her experiences in supporting youth-led and youth-serving organizations through the process of implementation research. So we have it's a lengthy video, but it's a really powerful one that I wanted to share with you all. So we're going to go ahead and play that now. Please excuse the video quality, by the way. There were some network challenges during the summit that I think made the videos a bit grainy. But nonetheless, the words are loud and clear. Let me go ahead and I can share my screen. Just a moment. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay. I'll go ahead and play the video. Again, the slides and everything is a bit grainy, so we'll go ahead and share the slides after this call too, in case people want to take a closer read.
That youth works in the youth development programs. What is the position of youth in these programs? And I'm going to tell you two options that I've been thinking about. The first one is youth as a passive beneficiary of these programs. They just benefit from the results as an object. And the second one is youth as a fundamental part of the decision making. That's a shift, right? So in this first option, I was thinking about a Latin American educational movement that is called Fe Alegría. And Fe Alegría does this amazing work all over Latin America, but especially in Central America. I have worked with them in Guatemala, where they have like 50 schools for disadvantaged youth and children. And they make really awesome work. And they promote inclusive education in the most remote rural areas you can imagine, where the national state doesn't exist. And also marginalized places in the cities where teenagers get involved in gangs and in drug cartels. But even though they make this amazing work, they don't believe in youth as leaders of their programs. And I'm wondering why, if they're so inclusive. Why is this? So we're gonna shift this thought with implementation research, that it's the Youth Excel program. And we think that this is a way to change these thoughts. And how? We believe that young persons can be young researchers that can produce credible, and I want to emphasize in that word, credible knowledge that can help organizations to make decisions. And what we do is that we train youth-led organizations to make research in 3 key moments of programs where they are implementing. The start, when you start a program, then when you're implementing the program, and then when the program finishes. And we think that they can produce this really important evidence that can help the decision-making process. But the thing is that it sounds really, really cool, really nice, really beautiful. But what we've experienced is that this challenges in 2 different ways. The first thing is that we need to change how we see youth, how decision makers see youth, because they see them as troublemakers, as we have talked about, but also as unreliable sources of information. Kids don't know what they're talking about, right? They don't know. And but the other thing that really worries me is that youth has internalized the social stigma, and they don't believe in themselves. They also think that they are incapable of doing things that are important, of speaking up. So I'm gonna do a little exercise with you guys that I have done with a lot of youth-led organizations in Latin America. And I want all of you to stand up, please, and to trust me on this. Okay, so I want you guys to close your eyes. Please trust me on this. Close your eyes. Okay, now dance. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so close your eyes. And now I want you to think about the word research. Close your eyes, close your eyes. I want you to think about the word research and identify the first images, the automatic images that pop in your minds. What are they? Take a minute. Now, I want you to feel that word research. How does it feel in your body? What emotions do you associate with the word research? And in which part of your bodies do you feel those emotions? And the last thing that I want you guys to imagine is a person that is doing research. What is this person's gender? What is this person's age? Skin color? Is this person tall? Imagine what is this, their characteristics, their identity characteristics. Okay, so with that images in your minds, please open your eyes. And I want you to share a summary of all those images that you saw today, right now, with someone at your left or right, and share them really fast, please. What you saw.
Hello, do you understand my speak? Hello?
Okay, so I'm sorry that I know that everyone is so excited, but we need to continue to our presentation. Okay, if you hear me, can you clap once? Can you hear me? Can you clap twice? If you hear me, can you clap 3 times? Thank you so much. Okay, so this exercise is like 1 hour, you know, but we don't have the time. I was doing this same exercise with some Dominican Republic young researchers, so that's what you're seeing here at the screen. But I want to share the results of this exercise in Guatemala with these beautiful young researchers that are over there. Yeah. And what they told me is that they felt with research, they felt frustration, they felt fear, they felt angry, you know, they felt confused, really confused, and they felt their chest hurt. They felt their throat was totally closed. They were like, Monica, I'm not going to be able to speak because when I think about research, my throat just closes, you know? They felt sweaty hands and they felt insecure. And the thing is that maybe all of us feel insecure when we talk about research because it's a big word, because we associate research as you being intelligent. And if you can't do research, you're dumb, you know? So imagine young researchers and they tell me, yeah, well, everyone can feel that way, but we feel that way because we're young. Because we feel that even though we're saying something really intelligent, they're gonna doubt it because of my age, you know. But I want to bring up something that Margarita, that is not here, but she was like someone so important to the ICANN process in Guatemala. She's a Quiche woman, an indigenous leader. And she told me, well, Monica, when I think about a researcher, I think of a gringo. I don't know if you have heard the word gringo. That's how in Latin America, you know that we're funny. In Latin America, we say gringo to an American. So, well, but you know. Okay, so she was like, I think about a gringo, an anthropologist, un antropólogo gringo, walking in my community with a morral. A morral is like a hippie purse. I don't know how to say, like a hippie purse, you know, with his boots, like walking to the community and asking us a lot of questions. We're like, this crazy gringo, what the hell, you know? And he's like asking my mother, my sister, a whole lot of questions, and we don't know why. And then he disappears for a lot of months, and then he comes back to our community with a big book and tell us, hey, this is your story. This is your identity. This is who you are. And she's like, man, that's my story. I should be the one who tells my story, not him. You know? Yeah. So that was like a shock to me. And I was like, yeah, she's totally right. So what is happening in research? Why is Margarita feeling that she's not capable and she's not credible to tell her story? That's crazy, you know? So, and this is really amazing. So I know that the image is a little bit blurry, but this is a drawing that Ishokiv Medium, an amazing organization of Guatemala, that Elizabeth is one of the coordinators. They made this image of the researcher they imagined. They're all Maya Quiche women. And as you see, I don't know if you can read, but there's like Harvard and Yale, like somewhere. He has money eyes. You just see money. And well, the little notes, there's a calculator, and they're like, I'm his exotic object of study. I'm not the researcher, I'm his object. And I don't want to be an object. And implementation research, we believe that that the Margarita can be the researcher, and that she's as qualified as this money-eyed researcher, right? So, but the thing is that it's not just enough to talk to these young researchers and make them believe in themselves. We want to transform what decision makers see in youth. Because we had a really bad experience in the ICANN Guatemala. The youth-led organizations shared their research findings to adult allies, and they were academics, they were people from the government, and the thing is that they were really mean, and they were really criticized, harshly criticized. But we were like, this is not because of the data. This was because of the stigma, the social stigma, because this academic was really harsh to the organizations that were working on disabilities, on women's rights, that reivindicated their identity, diversity, and that they were really proud of being Maya Quiche, and that it's a big indigenous population. And this moment was really hard for us. We burst into tears. We were really frustrated. We were really disappointed. And what I want you to think about is that each and one of us are researchers. When we get sick, for example, we think, hey, did I eat something wrong? It's the weather. I'm stressed out. I'm thinking about hypotheses, right? Then we gather information. You talk to your mom. Hey, mom, when I was little, should I get a rash for eating fish? Or I don't know, you talk to your doctor, you Google it. I mean, you're looking for information. Then you compare that information, you analyze that information, and you make results. You're doing research every day. We're researchers every day, not just the people that have a PhD. So we invite you to shift that paradigm. We invite you to move to another set of thoughts that young researchers can produce situated knowledge, important knowledge that we can use as decision makers, but also that information can transform us, not only in our thoughts, but in our hearts too. So thank you very much.
All right. So I wanted to ask, what were some of your initial reactions when watching that video? What stood out to you all? I see some sadness. Me too, Sarah. Yes, Susan, I see that you're having some network issues. We'll be sure to share the recording in an email out to everyone after this call. Thank you for that. And what I'll do too, Susan, because I know that you may not have been able to see the video, I'll go ahead and post the video link here in the chat in case people want to refer to it or watch it after. What were some initial reactions from others as you were watching the video? I see fear about research here. Thanks for sharing that, Mike. Could you say a bit more about that? I'd love to hear from you. Mm. Sarah shares here that there's a disparity between what people are experiencing on the ground and what's captured by research when it's not led by people in the community. Mm. Yeah. I encourage everyone to be reading the chat right now too for their contributions. But there is a history of these interactions between communities and researchers, and that shapes how people see themselves, whether they see themselves as researchers too. So that's an important thing to consider. What are some thoughts from others? Maybe I'll ask this question then. What are the consequences of not creating opportunities for young people to lead research, especially those who do face disadvantages?
لو أستاذ ده التلفزيون كنا في التلفزيون كله درس مثلا قبل سمينا وكان فرنسا ركز مع بريزنت
Abdul,
بينما أنا مقالة مرامك
so the question, I'll go ahead and put that question in the chat if people want to answer that.
hello, I would like to start video.
Yeah, what were your thoughts, Abdul, on the video? Oh, there might be a tech issue here. So I see here a consequence might be further disadvantaging youth by not including them in the research and leading the research. It's a great point. Yes, there's something about storytelling that's involved in research. When you don't get to do research, you don't get to tell stories. Okay, these are all great points. And we'll go ahead and oh, I see some other contributions here. Leading to more distrust and lack of engagement. Sharika, I'd love to hear from you if you're able to come off mute and say a bit more about that.
Yeah, no, I think I was struck in the video by when the presenter was talking about how people were feeling if a researcher from outside is coming in and sort of telling, kind of taking their story from them and taking that power away from them of telling their own story. And if that's something that's happening frequently, or if that's how people are viewing researchers coming into their communities, then that sort of contributes to sort of more distrust, maybe just not wanting to be involved or engaged if you have this feeling that somebody will just come and take this from me and then you know move on, and you know there won't be something necessarily happening here that I'm really a part of or that I had a hand in contributing to. So was just thinking about that piece kind of stuck with me a little bit.
Thanks for sharing that, Sharika.
Sure.
So for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and move on, but we do have that video in the chat. We encourage you to watch it on your own time, share with others. I think we're all committed to really supporting young people in leading research so that they can tell their own stories. I love that connection between storytelling and research as well. Something else that we wanted to take note of is we really want to make this a space where it's not just Youth Excel having features and presenting things. This is a space created and supported by Youth Excel, but we want to hear from a lot of people. And we have a link here that's a feature presentation proposal form. So I'm going to go ahead and share this in the chat with you all. we'd love to hear your thoughts on features that you would like to see, topics that you'd like to discuss in meetings like this. And we also invite you to participate in a presentation if you'd like to share something too. So yeah, feel free to check out that link. It's here in the chat. Take some time to review it and fill it out. You don't have to be a feature presenter, but you can propose ideas. We'd love to hear from you. We want to make this an inclusive space that all of us can really benefit from. So take some time to explore that link, and we look forward to hearing your ideas for how we might take this group forward. I think that about covers everything that we had on the agenda for today. I wanted to thank everyone for joining. I know that you all have busy schedules and busy lives outside of this, so thanks for taking some time to be here. We appreciate it, and we'll be sure to follow up with a recording to the session and any associated resources. Thanks everyone for your time today.